Hi, my name is Kevin Jackson, and today I'm going to talk about probate. So the first question is, what is probate? Now, technically, probate is the confirmation or validation of a deceased person's will by the court. But generally, when people refer to probate, they're referring to an estate administration in the probate court, and that's after a decedent has passed away. During this legal proceeding, the court will appoint a personal representative for the probate estate who will gather, value, and inventory the deceased person's assets, pay the deceased person's debts, bills, and taxes, and then distribute the deceased person's assets to the beneficiaries of their will, or if the decedent died without a will, to the proper heirs of his or her estate. Now, which assets are subject to probate? Most assets held in the decedent's individual name are subject to the probate process. However, some assets are not included in the decedent's probate estate, those being assets held in trust or that have a proper beneficiary designation. Generally, assets like life insurance policies, 401ks, IRAs, and those types are not subject to probate so long as a beneficiary has been named. Additionally, California has a probate shortcut called a small estates procedure, which allows for the transfer of a smaller estate valued at less than $184,500. And with that, there's no need for a court-supervised probate proceeding. Now, some may ask, are there any downsides to the probate process? There are some factors that people see as downsides to the probate process. First, depending on the court, especially in larger cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, the probate process can take close to a year to complete. Another potential disadvantage of a probate proceeding is that it is public. The deceased person's assets will be put on display in the public court record, and most aspects of the administration will be reported. Now, probate also can be expensive. Millions of dollars in legal fees and court costs are paid yearly to facilitate probate administrations. One may ask, are there any advantages to probate? One of the advantages of probate may be that the probate court will supervise the personal representative's handling of your estate, so the court will ensure that everything has been handled properly. The last question is, what are some ways a person can avoid the probate process? The best way to avoid the probate process is through effective estate planning, specifically executing and funding your assets into a trust. There's a bit of a misconception that if a person has a will, their assets will avoid probate. And that's actually not true. If a person dies with a will, their assets are still subject to the probate process on death. The will simply allows that person, one, to select the personal representative of their estate, and that's referred to as an executor, and two, to select the person who will receive their assets. That person is referred to as the beneficiary. If a person dies without an estate plan, meaning without a will or a trust, his or her assets are generally subject to the probate process and will be distributed according to the default California laws. And these default rules are known as intestacy. A trust is essentially a document that holds your assets, excluding certain assets like a 401k or an IRA or et cetera, and governs the management, use, and disposition of those assets. The trust takes effect immediately upon its execution, as opposed to a will that takes effect upon the person's death. Now, if your assets are in a trust and properly funded, they are not subject to probate. They are managed and distributed according to the trust terms. So in a nutshell, that is probate.